party, party! About to drop a wisdom party. How you guys feeling today? I tell you what, I feel freaking fantastic. 2 nights ago, the Schumann resonance jumped up. Its amplitude hit 120 hertz. And for the past 2 mornings, I've just been waking up at like 3 in the morning just jacked. Right? I bet my pupils like dilate when I wake up because it's just, I don't know, I've been feeling fantastic. And that's a big thing that a lot of people kind of misconstrue about the Schumann resonance. If you don't know what it is, go check out a video I did last week on it. When it jumps up that high and it entrains our brainwaves along with it, right? Anything above, I believe, is 30 hertz is the gamma range for our brainwaves. That can be associated with, yes, higher states of conscious awareness and higher information processing, but it can also be associated with anxiety, like a really jacked up brain. So when the Schumann resonance jumps that high, what you have to do is make sure you're literally like able to receive that resonance, able to live in harmony and basically, you know, receive the downloads per se or whatever, and not, right, ride the wave, not get sucked under it. So anyway, in this video today, what I'm going to do is discuss with you alchemy. This is going to be a video that's way out in left field, and we're going to talk about a whole lot of different things. We're going to talk about mercury, we're going to talk about secret government projects, we're going to talk about Carl Jung and Luke Skywalker, but it's going to be fun, and I'm going to do a lot of ranting and a lot of dot connecting actually with you guys, because I was researching for this, right? And the inspiration for a lot of these videos simply stems from me just thinking of stuff. Oh, that might make a good video. Let's see, and then I like try to write it down on the whiteboard or think upon it. I'm like, yeah, that'd be fun to talk about. So in this one, the research I did for it, it connected a lot of freaking dots, and I'm like, holy crap, right? So what I'm going to do is break this up into 2 different components. As you can see here, I have physical and metaphysical, because that's just one way that I see the world. I think the yin and yang concept, or that law of polarity, is just, you could literally spend days, picking out different examples of how that manifests. So when I think of alchemy, I just simply think of, physical and metaphysical, or like physical and spiritual. And I'm going to kind of discuss how they tie in together and then discuss them separately. And I'm going to start over here with the physical alchemy. And I'm going to mainly discuss mercury. So there's, a lot of mythological ways that they use different compounds to create different compounds. So when it comes to mercury, it's always been, legend is always told that mercury is turned into gold. Dropping flows there. And alchemists believe mercury transcended the both solid and liquid states. That's what they believed. And when it comes down to it, it actually very much does. It can become a plasma, and then from that, legend has it that you can actually create gold. And what's very interesting to note is that this wisdom, right? I mean, I'm not even going to try to get into other aspects of alchemy, because I was just doing some simple research on it, and I recently bought Manly P. Hall's book, and I was going to do a little bit of research before this, but I'm like, oh my god, that's so in-depth. But I'm just going to discuss more so how it relates to secret government projects, because what's more fun to talk about than secret government black projects? So because of mercury's ability to turn into a plasma, according to, and I'm going to drop a Jeff Rentz article down below, discussing what's called the TR3B. Now, this is a black project craft that supposedly was built in either the 80s, maybe seen as early as the 90s, late or early as the 90s. And how the TR3B flies is using mercury in a counter-rotating vortex. They pressurize it, and then they shock it or keep it really cold or something to that effect. You could check out the specs down below, and maybe any of you physics buffs can kind of rebut it, or, let me know your thoughts on it. But anyway, with a counter-rotating mercury vortex in the middle, it creates a gravity canceling effect around the craft here. And it's called a mercury vortex drive, and then it has a 90% mass cancellation. So you imagine this thing, right? It may be a normal, you have a couple thrusters on this that allow it to freaking move, and instead of going maybe a normal 1,000 miles an hour, it goes 10,000 miles an hour. 90% less mass. So instead of maybe being able to handle 4 Gs, this craft is really handling 40 Gs, right? And then, there's a inertial canceling effect, and inside the craft it's only maybe 4 Gs, but really it's 40. So let's just say this thing can go really freaking fast, and that was developed supposedly in the 80s. So what this all boils down to, though, is, according to different whistleblower testimony, gold is actually an output of this process, and it's a bad thing. It's a very bad thing when the gold starts to form, because then it'll essentially like crust in the pipes right here, and then the craft will crash. So it's very, right, they have to rotate it in very specific geometrical patterns, I believe, is what they do. Gold is it has one more proton than mercury. So what I'm theorizing in my head is that when this mercury counter-rotates, it spins the angular momentum of the particles in such a way that it's able to knock one of the protons out, right? When it's in a vortex, there's extra torsion force being sucked into the molecules or whatnot. So that then crusts, right? There's so much energy being output that gold. So you have to have it very specific. And that is the basics of the alchemical knowledge, at least on this end of it. I mean, I don't know how people in the 1500s might have made freaking gold from mercury or whatever they did. Because you always hear the stories that the kings used to kill the alchemists because they didn't want anything being made to gold because they wanted their monopoly on gold. So I don't know how they might have done that way back when, but this is how they do it now. And then you think, shoot, if that was like only 3 decades ago, and then the Navy started their Solar Warden faction of the Speaker Space program, like what do they have now? Who knows? But that's the basis to that. And this is some of the dot connecting that I was doing, the shit that just blew my mind. The caduceus right here. I drew that in really quick because this is when I was doing some research into alchemical mercury, this came up. This is the symbol, 1, for mercury, but 2, it's also the symbol that's used for modern medicine. Really freaking interesting when they're using the symbol. And this actually is a symbol that not only symbolizes mercury, but it symbolizes the anti-gravity effects of mercury. Because right here, when we have the coil going up, that's the counter-rotating signification. And then we have the expansion and the compression. Yin and yang again, right? Expansion and compression. So that's what we're doing with the mercury when we counter-rotate it. It's compressing, and it's bringing more of the energy into itself. And then we have the wings signifying air, this flying. So isn't that nuts? But why? This is the question that spurred my mind. Why is this used as the modern medicine symbol, right? This one kind of makes me angry because obviously where does mercury come into play in modern medicine? We got vaccines, we have dental amalgam fillings, we have mercury in fuck shit, who knows what, right? They literally, in 50% of all high fructose corn syrup samples, mercury's been found. So it's like they try to get it into our bodies in any way, shape, or form to kill us with, right? And this is a big lesson. I've actually done a couple Instagram posts on this because it's an interesting thought to me. Mercury can be used to kill us, or it can be used to essentially, in my mind, save us, right? When you understand torsion physics and the abilities, the possibilities, the etheric physics, or whatever you want to call it, right? When you understand this is possible, it could literally save us. This is free energy physics. So it's, perspective is everything. It's all how you look at something. Mercury can save us or it can kill us. That's just really interesting to me. And then it pisses me off because it's like, boom, truth in plain sight right there. But they put it as the symbol of modern medicine, so. Modern medicine. So that is the basics of, like, physical alchemy. And the interesting thing is, as well, is that you don't even need to, like, do this process. Just the knowledge, right? As the Kybalion, the Hermetic wisdom I've been reading states, all is mental. So just the simple understanding of this, like, I'm throwing some really deep concepts out there. And, I mean, you guys, you clicked on this video, it's up to you to watch it. You subscribe to my YouTube channel, so I'm not breaking any laws of free will or anything, but this is, just understanding this is what causes a metaphysical transmutation or a metaphysical spiritual alchemy, right? It's like, I think of it this way. It's like the concept of marijuana. You don't even have to smoke marijuana to have a consciousness expansion effect from it, right? Just learning about the history, like William Randolph Hearst and why it's vilified and what it can do for cancer and all that jazz. boom, your consciousness is raised just by thinking about it, right? All is mental. So just and I know I'm kind of jumping around here. And one last point I want to make: this example of mercury turning into gold and the anti-gravity properties and whatnot. This is just one example of 3-4 billion infinite things that can have a spiritual alchemical transformation process on you, right? And each piece of information you encounter starts to transform you, and then you research all kinds of stuff, and you have a spiritual transformation. That's essentially why we're here, right? So that's how physical alchemy, right? Just simply information, just knowledge. This is just one piece of it that freaking fascinates me. Knowledge itself in general has a metaphysical, creates a metaphysical transformation on you. And that brings us into, obviously, that portion of it. Now you see my Phoenix Rising? Oh, I misspelled Phoenix right here. You see my Phoenix Rising? It looks like a Pokemon. That's what I was thinking when I was drawing it. Whatever that like fire bird Pokemon is. Now, when it comes to metaphysical, just overall spiritual transformation or transmutation, those words are kind of interchangeable. There's a lot of different interpretations of it. And I'm not one to really sit here and, I've only spent so many years on this earth, and I've only been able to read so many things by now that I'm not one to tell you if your way of interpreting it is right or wrong, right? And it really comes down to like deity resurrections or examples of this, or if you've searched more into different alchemical wisdom. But essentially what I've been most familiar with is this. It's the hero's journey. And I made videos about it before, and I've discussed it quite a bit, and I'm going to keep discussing it because it's my YouTube channel, and I think it can help you. The hero's journey is an example of spiritual alchemy. And Joseph Campbell, here, I have his book right here. This is where we talk about Carl Jung, because Joseph Campbell is a Jungian, kind of a modern Jungian psychoanalyst. I mean, he was a few decades after Carl Jung in the 20th century, but Joseph Campbell uses what the archetypal concepts of Carl Jung to describe the concept of like the Phoenix Rising and spiritual transformation. He calls it the hero's journey. And the hero's journey, understanding this, it really explains every single story you've ever read. And it explains, I mean, that's the fascinating thing about archetypes, in that a lot of people, they get confused between personality and archetypes, right? Personality is like, okay, that person can be a dick, but he's not always a dick, or not everybody's a dick. Archetypes is something to the effect of it's concepts or it's patterns that everybody has, right? Masculine and feminine energies. We all have that within us. It's just there's different balances. You could say we all have the warrior energy within us, but it'll manifest as different shadows of itself if you don't keep it balanced. So archetypes are things that we all have. And we all undergo our own hero's journeys. It's an archetype that describes all of us. It describes really all of the myth. I mean, he even boils it down. He has a book of the same name. He even boils it down to like, this describes Jesus. This describes Luke Skywalker. This describes Frodo and Harry. Like, you could literally, that's why it's so fascinating. You read this, right? I read this, and I don't want to say it ruins every book or movie you've ever read, but you really like overanalyze the crap out of everything. You're like, oh, he's just the hero. He meets this, and I'll describe this to you so you kind of get it. So the hero's journey. There's always the main character, and then he begins on his call to adventure, right? And he is in the known. He's in the known territory. I have it written down here, and he begins on his call to adventure, right? And this is could be anything. It could be, pick a story. We could talk about Luke Skywalker. His call to adventure is when his aunt and uncle die, right? That's his call to adventure. Or Harry Potter's was when he got swooped up out of his house. It really could be, again, I'll probably use those examples because a lot of people can align with those, and that I like Star Wars. I know that well. So, call to adventure, that's what occurs. And then there's refusing the call, right? Because the hero is obviously scared. He's very scared as what's to come or what's going on. And then the hero meets the mentor. And Obi-Wan Kenobi shows up, right? That's the mentor. Or Gandalf. The mentor shows up. Dumbledore, right? Again, it just all fits together. It's like a puzzle in which the pieces just fit together in. And this, again, not only does it describe our stories, but it describes ourselves. Because we each have our own adventures that we're called to. We each have our own mentors, whether your mentor is in person or there's a lot of online mentors, right? The magic of the freaking internet. There's a lot of people who mentor online that people gravitate towards because they either want to be like them or see things in their personality that gravitates them towards that. So there's always a mentor that comes across that helps the hero then cross that threshold. And crossing the threshold is when, obviously, like Luke Skywalker goes off to join the rebellion, or Harry Potter goes to school, or goes to Hogwarts, whatever it might be. Crossing the threshold might be you taking that jump to start your own business or do whatever you want to freaking do that is your adventure. Now, after you cross the threshold, the hero then comes across his enemies, his allies, he goes through that whole process, and then that's a good lengthy chunk of the movie. See, in the movies, like, this doesn't take long. This might take 10 to 15 minutes, but there's a lot of build-up. They gotta have the hero go through the tests and meet his enemies, right? Luke has to meet Darth Vader. And also what's really interesting is when the hero meets the enemy, what the enemy, the arch enemy of the hero, so Darth Vader to Luke Skywalker, if the hero were to never embark on this hero's journey, what would occur would that his faults, if you amplified them, would become that enemy. So if Luke Skywalker never went on this journey, he would basically become Darth Vader. And it's always the amplified version of the malfunctioning characteristics of the hero. So, I mean, there's so many more rabbit holes you could go. There's been volumes that's been written on the hero's journey and Jungian psychoanalysts and whatnot. So, anyway, let's keep going with this. And then after the enemy is found and the tests and all that stuff happens, the whole ordeal happens, we get to the death and rebirth, the abyss, the phoenix rising, right, where it burns down to the ashes, and then it has to find itself and rise back up. And, right, this occurs in every story. It's when, probably, I would say Luke Skywalker was in Cloud City, right, and he had that fight and got his arm cut off. That was him going through his dark night of the soul. Oh, I dropped that term a little early. Dark night of the soul. This is what's a really, really important concept about the death and rebirth right here. Dark night of soul. Is that when, the abyss, the hero, falls off a cliff, he has to go through that dark night of the soul to find himself and, then be able to transmute his spirit to be able to win, basically, to seize the sword, or to get his reward, or to, complete that level, right? To complete that level. And this is also what occurs with each of us. When each of us is going through our own hero's journey, we then get to this point where, oh, well, maybe your business failed or something because you couldn't do something, or your relationships failed, or something failed in your life where there was a certain aspect of yourself that you just couldn't handle. And that's, when you hit rock bottom and you then say, I have to change my ways or I'm not going to succeed. And that's what you have to do. That's the dark night of the soul. And again, in the way the universe works is really freaking beautiful because it will always keep giving you the same tests over and over until you pass it, right? The concepts of repetition compulsion that Joseph Campbell and Jung talks about. So, anyway, once that dark night of the soul is then happens and you conquer it, you have your reward. You see the sword, and there's the road back, and the resurrection kind of occurs. Oh, the hero's back, and they return with the elixir. They return with the new knowledge. They go back into the known world after all the stuff they go through, right? Basically the hour and a half of movie that you just sat through right here. And then, oh yeah, the last 5 minutes, right? Everything's nice and happy, or what? Oh yeah, Luke Skywalker's back, and now he's got to burn his dad's body. So there's the... and then the hero returns, and that's it. So that's basically what encompasses this example. This is only one example of what you can do to describe metaphysical alchemy, and it fascinates me. And I'm going to keep discussing archetypes because I think people can use that to really find themselves. It's a great way to do that. Carl Jung, Joseph Campbell, and also one Dr. Robert Moore all use archetypes to help describe the psyche, describe the self. And then lastly, the last little bit is when it comes to thinking of the hero's journey, throughout describing this, I've been really doing it from a singular perspective. Like you have your own hero's journey. The hero does. I do. This, as the law of correspondence states, as above, so below. Not only is this individual, but it's also a collective thing we're all going through. And this is a bit of wisdom, is that humanity is going through its own dark night of the soul right now. This is the times we're going through. And as we move out of that last age we were in, that last cycle, that last age of Pisces, or however you want to describe it, and move into that age of Aquarius, we are collectively having our own, destruction, our own downfall, to then rebirth out of that a completely different civilization. And those are the times of apocalypse, the times of disclosure, revelations, the revealing, that's why I call this destroying the illusion, because there's so many constructs that we have to literally burn down. People are so afraid of the destroying process, but you have to destroy. You got to burn it down to be able to rebuild upon that. Okay, so don't worry. I should say, things are a little crazy right now, but humanity's going through its own dark night of the soul, and if you give them, you have to give. The way you speak truth is that you have to give positivity to it, because I know there's a lot of darkness. You have to face the darkness. That's what I say a lot of the time, is you have to face the darkness to be able to transcend it, but you also have to offer the positivity of, okay, once we go through the revealing of all the nastiness, of all the stuff that's been held back, and truth, right? Then we can have, what do we get after that? Wow, once this is all disclosed, we can start messing around with things like free energy and redoing our whole monetary currency value system, and rebuilding a whole new system, a whole new way. But that can only happen once things are destroyed. So anyway, I'm gonna leave you guys today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for following along during all my tangents here on alchemy. So anyway, let's play along, guys. I'll stay tuned. Peace.